NASCAR off-season is upon us. Winter is here, but does that mean that we have to completely lose any sort of racing? No, and we have the folks over at Sim500 to thank for. For the second year in a row, we partner with the Sim500 organization, and we will bring you here on RaceSpotTV the Sim500 Kickass Beef Jerky Series here on RaceSpotTV on Wednesday nights. Round one from Las Vegas coming up in just a couple of minutes. Don't go away.
The most realistic online racing sim ever made. This is iRacing. Detailed laser scan tracks, fully dynamic real world cars, and over 50 series to choose from. 6 online world championships offering over $100,000 in annual prizes. This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
Welcome back here to RaceSpotTV as coverage kicks off here in the offseason of 2018. This championship will be 13 races long and will bring us into pretty much the middle stages of 2019. And it's going to be myself, David Schildhouse, and Hugo Louis bringing you all the action. David, Xfinity cars on, for the most part, what is a pretty standard NASCAR looking schedule. Going to be roughly 13 weeks long. There is a 3-race chase in the format. This is going to put on some good showing. The Xfinity cars, they don't get, a lot of leagues will run the trucks or they'll run the 8 cars. I've not seen a big Xfinity league in quite a while. I know that when we did the Sim500 stuff in association with Joe Gibbs last year, the Xfinity car got mixed in a couple of times. But it's good to see this B car get a little bit of love here on RaceSpotTV. I don't think it's something we've seen in a while.
Good evening, Randy, and good to be here for Sim500 racing action. Yeah, the Xfinity car is a nice blend of a little bit underpowered, a little bit on the weighty side as well, and it really puts it into the hands of the drivers to get these race cars around the track, keep it off each other as well, and put down some good lap times. It really does make for some great racing. I'm glad to see them use it here in this series, and you know, it's sad when racing ends at Homestead, but here we are into the off-season already. Another racing season begins here for the guys at Sim500, so excited to see what they can do over the next 13 weeks and who's going to walk away with a championship.
Of course, the off-season on iRacing is never boring. You have, of course, a variety of leagues kickoffs, such as Sports Car Open and the Neo Endurance Series. Sim500 tends to operate this time of year as well. And of course, if you're talented enough, you have all of the variety of Road to Pro Series trying to get yourself into one of them world championships on the iRacing service. So it's a busy time of year. Let's talk a little bit about this racetrack, Las Vegas Motor Speedway. 136 laps tonight, 1.5-mile racetrack. That puts us just over 200 miles, on the distance counter. Should run us roughly an hour and a half. As we look up and down the schedule, that's pretty much the distance we're going to be seeing every single week. Las Vegas, 136 laps. Next week at Atlanta, 130, 120 at Auto Club. That's pretty much the number they've targeted up and down this schedule. And looking up and down the schedule, David, there's really not a lot of standout tracks in terms of, wow, that really jumps out at me in terms of a major curveball. The only track these guys maybe not so used to in these cars could be that Daytona International Speedway road course that they'll be going to in week number 4 before they start that Christmas break.
I absolutely love the decision of the schedule maker to put the road course right there, week number 4 at Daytona, a road course that, you know, it doesn't rank high up there, I think, as far as overall difficulty, but as far as overall racing action, it's hard to beat what you can get there at the World Center of Speed. So that's going to be something different for these guys after 3, cookie cutter, if you want to call it that, ovals, jump onto the road course before their 2-week break. Really exciting. I think that's a great idea and really spices things up a little bit, especially in the early going. So if you don't have quite the strength on ovals, but you fancy a road course every once in a while, you could get an early shot at snagging one of those wins in this coveted series.
As we get down deeper into the championship, then you have Homestead, Chicagoland. Talladega is going to be the lone plate race this season. Then you have Pocono and Iowa and Darlington with the throwback race. Those three races will bring us into the chase, where the top 8 drivers will duke it out for the championship. And then Kentucky, Indianapolis, and Michigan will be the tracks that close us out. As we have qualifying currently still underway, we have roughly 3.5 minutes left, still waiting on about a half dozen or so drivers to get themselves out there and put in a qualifying run. That's assuming they've not made mistakes on their qualifying run, which we know happened. Of course, we do have to plug the wonderful sponsor bringing us this championship, David. Kickass Beef Snacks, partnering with Sim500 to make this series possible. Always fun and always a good thing to see some companies jumping in, and especially those from outside of the sim racing family. You know, yeah, it's great to see some hardware manufacturers get in the mix and all the likes of those things, but it's great seeing, you know, something food related, snack related come in, sponsor one of these leagues, especially with a company name that I can get in as much trouble saying and repeatedly by Hugo as Kickass.
Yeah, I think we'll find a way to work that into the broadcast as often as possible, because it's not often that you get the opportunity to say such words on a professional broadcast. But I have had the opportunity actually to work with Kickass Beef Snacks in the past in in a dirt league last year, and they're a great company. Loved working with them. They were founded in the early 1950s by Charles Littell, and out there in Sauk City, Wisconsin. So coming from the great Midwest, and here 45 years later or so, his grandson Charlie's taken over and bringing it to the masses, and really took off in 2017, where Jeremy purchased the family business and has been bringing it to everybody. And now they've expanded out e-commerce, social media, and the like. And you can get in touch with them at kickassbeefjerky.com. You can follow them on Twitter at kickassbeefjerk. And you can also find them on Facebook. So a lot of ways to connect with the fine folks there at Kickass Beef Snacks. And boy, if they could send some snacks up to the broadcast booth, I wouldn't be mad about that either.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with that one. And considering it is a holiday season, we are coming off the back of Thanksgiving. Let's just do this. Kickass Beef Snacks, kind enough for this opening broadcast, they're kicking out a giveaway for you at the viewers. So this is the way we're going to do this. You'll be able to see the entire starting grid when we go down here in just a minute or so time. And then upon that, make sure you take note of those drivers, because whoever picks the correct driver to lead a lap on lap 22, that was the day of Thanksgiving, will get your information, and we will get you, I believe, the giveaway reward will be a beef jerky gift pack with a hat. So once you see that entire starting grid, that'll let you know who all's in the race. Just simply type in the name of the driver you think will lead lap number 22, and if you are correct, and if you are the first one to be correct, you'll be getting a beef snack sent your way. So they're getting some snacks, David, but not us.
I'm guessing that we're probably excluded from that giveaway too, huh?
Yeah, well, we're in the server, so we have an advantage.
Oh,
it'd
fair
be like
enough.
insider training.
Yeah, I guess I'll look away, for the opportunity to win, but waiting for the last of these guys to make their qualifying runs. We got, I think I counted, if I can count correctly, 39 cars here taking time. So nice big field, and you see there on the left-hand side of the screen, Anthony DeBarro currently at the top of the leaderboard. A couple of these guys taking a late run, but about to close out this session.
Yep, that is what we're going to be taking a look at. 20 seconds on the clock until we can officially bring you your official starting grid, so we will wait until that happens. Also with Jason Barham in the chat saying lap 20, so we will go ahead and pick lap number 20. So, as we get ready and wait for these guys to get themselves sorted, you see the first 15 on the left-hand side. That counter is going to kick down to 0. That's going to be the trigger. Let's go down your starting grid for round number 1 of the Sim500 Kick-Ass Beef Jerky Winner Series. On the front row will be Anthony DeBarro with Jason Jacoby starting on that outside. Brandon Buell and David Constock on row number 2. I should take that back. That's Brandon Bowie and David Constock on row number 2. Tommy Ryan and Chad Coleman will be on row 3 with Larry Pace and Nicholas Cohen on row number 4. Anthony Calatoni and Glenn Campbell will make up row 5. Tyler Overstreet and Bobby Terrell on row number 6. Jimmy Coleman, Scott Simley, they're going to make up that 7th row with Shane Ewing and Trey Itson on row number 8. Row 9, Brian Boris Cook. He's the one who made that Joe Gibbs series last year possible, with Michael Waters on the outside of that 9th row. Joey Katina and E.J. O'Rourke will make up row number 10, with Randy Yoakum and Mike Kelly on row number 11. Patrick Colby and Milt Matisse on row number 12. Nelson Rivera and Sean Boundy, row number 13. Tim Matthews and Dwight Beverly on row 14, with Jason Barham and Timothy Johnston on row number 15. Row 16, Michael Priester and Doug Roth, with Nick Silver and Jonathan Lockhart on row number 17. Those drivers are all the ones who put in a qualifying time. Row number 18 will have Matthew Wazenbach and Bobby Wetzel. Row 19, Corey Chester and Jason Lester, and Chris Cabot will make up the 39-car field we have starting tonight. The field will be rolling off here shortly, and we will be bringing you 136 laps of action around the Las Vegas Motor Speedway. We haven't talked about the conditions at all, David. Pretty much kind of conditions these guys should be used to. Partly cloudy, 78 degrees, 106 degree track temp. TLDR, it's basically default weather.
It feels like a typical Las Vegas day. I spent a couple years living out there, and boy, I tell you, if I ever went out to the racetrack, I wouldn't be too mad about 78 degrees, partly cloudy. That's it's pretty appropriate for this time of year, but it's going to be good weather. These cars are going to slip and slide a little bit, I think, with the track temperature a little over 100 degrees. So it won't just be a car on a rail, that's for sure. These drivers are going to have to earn it here tonight at Las Vegas Motor Speedway, and as the track starts to rubber in, that groove is going to widen out, and we'll see these guys be able to attack a little bit different. We'll see some grooves develop top and bottom side, but watching things in practice, it already looked like they were able to run too wide around the racetrack, but that top side, I saw guys get really loose on corner exit. You got a lot of steering wheel cranked into it, and these guys would get a little bit loose and carry it down the racetrack into that bottom lane, so something to keep an eye on there, but they're heading down the backstretch. We'll be getting the green flag next time by.
If they roll down the back straightaway, Las Vegas always brings good natural side-by-side racing here on the iRacing service. Of course, very bumpy on the inside. Turns number 1 and 2, you'll often see drivers run that middle groove or up against the wall. Here in 3 and 4, a little bit smoother down by the white line, but still a lot of people will choose that middle line 5, 6, 7 laps into the run once those tires start to get cooked up. However, we need to look out towards the front of the field, as even though the throwback week isn't until deep in the season here at Darlington, looks like Sterling Marlin is out there on the front row. Anthony Nabarro in the Coors Light scheme, waiting for that Mustang safety car to peel off onto pit road. It comes in the field in command of the 27. He gets on it, green flag wave, and the Sim500 Kickass Beef Jerky Winter Series is underway.
Nabarro all by himself. It's good to be the leader, get a nice jump. The leader does dictate the starts and restarts of these races, so he gets out by about 3 or 4 car lengths over Brandon Bowie in that 88. Side-by-side for third, Comstock on the inside. Jason Jacoby on the outside in the number 39. And then Chad Coleman in the number 20 slides into that 5th spot, nice and clean so far all the way through up the field. A couple side-by-side battles, but single file out front.
Yeah, single filing out. It was not a great start for your second place qualifier of Jason Jacoby. He immediately got jumped by Brandon Bowie, and he loses that second spot as they roll through 1 and 2. And you see drivers already picking their different lines. You see about half the field staying clear of that white line, because while you can run down there when the tires are somewhat new, once they start going away, that bottom groove will be very, very difficult and will accelerate the wear on those tires. And Anthony Nabarro is going to lead this lap off of corner number 4 as well. A little bit of fighting, a little bit further back in the field. Tommy Ryan and Nick Cohen, they're fighting just a little bit as they come across the stripe. I saw Cohen thinking about making a move coming off turn 4, but just wasn't close enough. They're side by side behind, though, as Larry Pays and Chad Coleman get side by side. That 0-0 gets really tight, almost a bit of contact there. See that 0-0, what can happen running that bottom lane, David? He got way tight, had to get way out of it, and he's falling. He's dropped, I think, 2 or 3 spots now, as Glenn Campbell's going to get to the rear bumper and make a move on the outside of turn 4.
It's awfully tempting to jump down to that bottom side when you think you got a run on a guy, but yeah, the grip just runs away down there, and you really got to saw on that steering wheel, and the car wants to get loose, and you have to chase it all the way up the racetrack, and sometimes you end up using up the guy on the outside lane. Larry Pace did a nice job to not have that happen. Chad Coleman, very thankful, because he very well could have ended up in the outside retaining barrier, but Larry Pace keeps it on the bottom side, and yeah, already, Randy, you can see these guys really fighting for that middle on up groove right now. That's really where the cars seem to be the most comfortable as they work through the racetrack, but you'll see him dive down to the bottom on the front stretch using up that apron to try and make a pass, but yeah, right now the middle and top lanes seem to be very dominant.
Jason Jacoby managed to get that second spot back away from Brandon Bowie as they worked down the back straightaway. Anthony Navarro came under attack in towards turn 1. Jacoby ran the lone line through 1 or 2 trying to make something happen. Wasn't quite able to do so. They're going to come off turn 4 and complete lap number 5. So Jacoby looking pacey here, considering how quickly he picked up that second spot and then got to the rear bumper of DeBarro as they worked through 1 and 2. Entire field pretty much single filed out in these early stages as we roll. Just a reminder to all your viewers, remember to get your votes in there for who you think will lead lap number 20, so you will be valid and in for the giveaway. Remember, that lap number 20 will count regardless of if there is a caution or not. If you're waiting until lap number 18 on the broadcast and trying to do it like a bit of an eBay auction and getting your bids all in last second, sometimes it can pay to be a little bit early on the gun, as Jacoby is still right there on the rear bumper. He lifts off the throttle a little earlier than Navarro does as they come onto the back straightaway. That's going to give him a slight run, but not enough. He's not going to be able to make a move in a 3, but he will harass the mirror just a little bit.
Filling up the rear view mirror is Jason Jacoby, doing a nice job in that 39. Bright paint scheme, can't really miss it on the broadcast there, looking very nice. Spouting showing his YouTube channel there as well. He should. Definitely personality is Jason Jacoby, but doing a nice job just running in the tire tracks of Anthony Navarro and trying to make him look more behind than out front, force him into a mistake. He gets such a great run off of 2. Now he'll poke the nose down to the inside. We'll see how this works. Didn't work well for Pace earlier, but look at that. Navarro just lifts out of the gas and lets him go. So a little bit of gamesmanship here maybe, but Navarro moves over, lifts, and just lets him go by.
So we're going to have a new race leader that comes to the stripe. Jason Jacoby officially leads the lap here on lap number 8 as they start lap number 9 now. Field still pretty much single file. We have that 0-0 of Larry Pace. You saw him earlier on. He's still repping that bottom groove through corners number 1 and 2, and I still don't think it's doing well for him. You see Bobby Terrell in that muscle melt car. He's going to get a run off turn 2 and make the move in towards turn 3, and that move is going to be over and done with really quickly and easy. Or is it, as the cut under might come in from Larry Pace, gets a little bit of a run down the front straightaway. It's going to be Bobby who still holds that position at the stripe, but they're going to be side by side through 1 and 2. The 0-0 on the bottom, but we know that low groove doesn't tend to pan out as they run through 1 and 2 side by side once again. That 5 car working just off the rear quarter panel should get the run down the back straightaway, but will the 0-0 still be able to fight back through 3 and 4? In the middle is the 5, still up against that white line of the 0-0, and I think this time Bobby might just have the run to get clear of him, and he's just about got it done. Move Bobby Terrell up officially into that 10th spot, and now Larry Pace has to deal with Scott Simley.
Nice job there by Bobby Terrell, working the outside, making that pass work in the number 5 machine. Made it look pretty easy, but again, these guys really aren't forcing the issue, giving each other a lot of room out there on the racetrack. Still in the early goings, only on lap 11 of 136, so no reason to really push it too hard, but now I see more cars starting to migrate to the bottom. So as these tires wear, that tells me these guys want to now move down the track to the bottom because the car gets really tight, and if you're already up against the wall in the corners, you run out of grip on exit, you're going to take the wall down. And that's where you're going to see a lot of the problems, these guys having to check up out of the throttle on corner exits. And some guys just can't react fast enough, and you'll run into them. As we see the 44 start to come up the racetrack off of 2 in front of Anthony Calatoni there. Almost a close call with the 44 of Glenn Campbell, but they keep it straight. Chad Coleman in the 20 out front there, that side-by-side battle. Good little scramble here, and I think as these tires wear, we're going to start to see more racing. These guys lose grip and search all over the racetrack.
One of the things to keep in mind with this championship, David, is it's a fixed setup series, so these guys aren't going to be able to work on the cars themselves, trying to make them better or worse, or, you know, won't be able to have their own touch, so to speak, how the tires like to come in. That is a big thing in a lot of these oval leagues that end up being open setup, is you'll see different sort of ideologies in terms of how they like the tires to come in over the course of a run. Some people like being a little quicker earlier on. Other people like being better later on. A lot of give and take in the setup for these cars for these longer style races. We're not going to be getting that. So to a certain extent, you really have to drive the car a certain way if you want it to be quick early on in the run, and you need to drive it a different way if you want it to be quick later on in the run.
Comers and goers, I think that's what they call that phenomenon. And we've seen some of the guys that have started up front sort of drop a little bit, and seen some names sort of work their way up through as well. Biggest mover right now that I can see is probably going to be Nicholas Cohen. Started 8th and is up to 5th right now in that number 21 machine, so he's up 3 spots. A couple of other guys have made some moves here and there, but seemingly everyone's almost around where they started the race. I think we're going to have to get a little bit further into this tire run before we really see some guys swap positions. A lot of patience being shown by these drivers right now. No change up front. Jason Jacoby still first, but a new name in second. It's going to be David Comstock in the 42, Brandon Bowie in third, and then Anthony DeBarro's now falling back to 4th.
Yeah, started doing well for that 27 car. Anthony DeBarro got into the dirty air, and that car just seems not to like it. Getting a little bit of a run on Brandon Bowie here, as we're going to get the 5 lap to go mark to lap number 20 once again. Kickass Beef Jerky giving us a giveaway. If you can correctly guess the driver that will lead lap number 20, you get yourself a nice little gift pack headed your way, complete with a Kickass Beef Jerky hat. So just type in the chat the driver you think that will lead lap number 20. First one to correctly guess that driver, we will get a hold of you somehow, some way, through the power of the internet. We'll just buy your information from Facebook. They're selling that stuff everywhere these days. But we will get stuff sent out to you, as currently things are starting to single file their way out. But deep in this top 20, I see a nice little scrap. I believe this is around 18th, 19th. Mike Kelly's involved in this fight. Michael Waters as well. E.J. O'Rourke has just checked into the back of this, just watching it just behind as well.
E.J. O'Rourke, that's a name I'm surprised isn't running closer to the front right now, but I have a feeling before it's all said and done, he will work his way to the front. A very accomplished sim racer in his own right, and you know, he's up to 20th right now, and probably just biding his time. That's where he started, and I think he's, again, being patient. He knows he can work his way through this field, but you got to be so careful in these fixed setup races not to abuse your equipment, the tires specifically. And here at a high-speed racetrack with a lot of fall-off like Las Vegas, you can't use it all up, or otherwise you end up looking like Anthony DeBarro, I think, where you fall back through the field a little bit, even though you're out front, perhaps a little too much pace, and you hurt the tires, make them upset. You can't really maintain that speed over the course of the long run.
It is definitely something you need to watch here, especially on the fixed setup, because we will see the comers and goers over the course of this race. Out front, pace still pretty much rapid. Everyone doing 32.4s for the most part. Anthony DeBarro, actually one of the quicker cars on the racetrack that last time through, was actually the second quickest car in the top 5. Only Nicholas Cohen was quicker, and is only by a couple of thousandths of a second. We're going to kick off lap number 20 right here. So starting lap number 20 will be Jason Jacoby. Can he lead it to the end? And then do we have someone who has picked his name? Yes, we do. So let's see if Jacoby can hold on for the sim racers. YC is the first person who has picked that in the chat.
Yeah, barely beat one Justin Fuller to picking Jason Jacoby. I'm surprised it took that long for somebody to put a name out there. It seems relatively obvious that was probably going to be the case. You know, you never know what could happen, I suppose. Don't want to call things before it's finished, but they'll kind of come across the line here in just a second. It is going to be Jason Jacoby, who does lead lap 20. So there you go. We got a winner for our first giveaway from Kickass Beef Jerky. So there you go. Good job.
Jason Jacoby will lead that 20th lap as we were checking in on screen with Brandon Bowie and Anthony DeBarro. You see that gap really opening up between third and fourth. Gotten to a few tenths of a second. They worked their way down this back straightaway. So congrats to the sim racers. We will be getting a hold of you some way, somehow we can. We've dealt with this in the past with some giveaways on the YouTube service as well. Side-by-side battle happening right now, though. Tommy Ryan and Chad Coleman. Coleman's going to be the benefactor here and pick up that second spot as that bright yellow and black car seems to get a little, didn't really seem too happy coming off turn 4. That's going to allow Chad Coleman to get that run and become the driver now searching to get himself a top 5 position. Also a couple gaggles behind. You have the likes of Trey Edson in the official Kickass beef jerky car. Now throwing a move on that 44 of Glenn Campbell. That's going to be for P number 9. Then 3 cars all line astern. That's going to be Anthony Calantoni, Bobby Terrell, and Scott Simley. They're all running 11th, 12th, and 13th.
Good little scramble here amongst these guys. A little bit further back and just a little bit outside of the top 10, but again, you see multiple lanes being used as the 10 of Trey Edison goes to the bottom side trying to work over the 00 of Larry Pace. Larry Pace for the first time all night up on the top side. We saw him eating up that bottom lane early on, and now seemingly once again trying to do the opposite of what everybody else is doing. I see that car sort of wander off the white line there for Larry Pace, so that tells me the car's just not handling the way he wants it to, so he can get the power down and maintain that continuous arc on the bottom like the rest of his competitors are, as the 10 now works underneath. So Trey trying to take over that 10 spot, and he will. So move the 10 up to P10.
Changes still happening inside of your top 10 here. Still drivers starting to really struggle off turn 2. We're starting to really see this here, David, as drivers getting a little bit tight, a little bit loose, and actually you look out in front, see that one driver has brought that lead gap in just a little bit. David Comstock now only 3/10 off your race leader of Jason Jacoby. That gap was much bigger than that just a few laps ago, and Jacoby just lost 1/10 that last lap as my timing updated. Goes from 3/10 of a second down to 1.8 as they work down the back straightaway here. Comstock, I think, having a better situation on the tires. Jacoby maybe overdriving the car early. The 42 will check down low through corners number 3 and 4. Maybe not able to make it stick just yet, but Jacoby's all sorts of sideways at the top. That's going to allow the 42 of Comstock to get at least an equivalent run down this front straightaway. He won't take the lead at the line, but he will be threatening forward in towards 1 and 2. He drives that car down sort of to the bottom, does a good job keeping it in the middle of the racetrack for as long as he can, and gonna now slide right past that white line and right past that number 39 for the race lead.
Third leader of the evening here is going to go to the 42, David Comstock, taking it over. And again, no surprise there to see that name out front. Well-accomplished sim racer as well is David Comstock, as he will now officially lead lap number 26, starting lap 27. So put Jason Jacoby back to second. And yeah, it seems to be that 42 just sort of sprung to life here in the middle portions of this run. And he's, again, just sort of run in the middle, but seemingly saved his stuff better than everyone else and is putting down just phenomenal lap times. Now we'll see with the clean air on the nose if he's able to pull away from the 39, or if somebody else is going to be able to charge up through like a Brandon Bowie, or maybe even Anthony DeBarro, who's showing new signs of life in the 27.
Need to be careful, though. He clipped a little bit of that apron down on the inside of corners number 3 and 4. Got that car a little bit out of shape. Did a good job to hold on to that thing as the field continues rolling itself. And this is what I meant kind of talking about earlier near the top of the race, David. We talked about the way the setups work, and we've kind of seen this with the different leaders we have. We saw Jacoby drive that car really, really hard through the early stages of the race. Now we're getting into sort of the middle phase of the run. He's starting to fall off a little bit. Comstock wasn't nearly as aggressive, but was still being a little bit pacey considering he's passed 3 cars in this run. Now he's sort of coming into his own here, and we're still looking at the likes of, I think, Brandon Bowie, Anthony DeBarro, those drivers who started still at the front of the field but have fallen back, most notably DeBarro. Next 10 to 15 laps, that could be the window opening up for him to potentially make some moves before that pit stop window.
Yeah, you want to be able to try and make up some positions or make up some time on the track before pit stops, and then execute a really great pit stop. Get onto pit road nice, clean pit stop itself, and get off pit road with as much speed as possible. It's a great way to make up time on the track. Heck, you can even take over the lead if you do it right. So a guy like Brandon Bowie, I'm watching this number 88 lap after lap close in on the top 2 drivers. And again, it's just who's saved their stuff better, who's able to put down consistent laps over the course of 30 laps here. And David Comstock out front, but Brandon Bowie in that 88 looking like he's about ready to take over that second spot from Jason Jacoby right now.
Yeah, Bowie's done a good job the last couple of laps, really bringing that car into that light blue YouTube J. Jacoby 88 machine as they work through the tri-oval here. And Bowie doesn't get a great run off of turn 4, so won't be making a move just yet. I do see another close fight, a little bit deeper back though. Chad Coleman and Trey Edson, they're going to be nose to tail. Edson's going to make the move down low through 1 and 2, and he's going to make that look easy. So now he can quickly switch back. Jacoby and Bowie. Jacoby has done a good job this lap to open that gap up just a little bit. Seemed to have the advantage in that 39 car over the 88 through corners number 1 and 2. So getting himself a little bit of breathing room. This is our one-time race leader. He's led the bulk of this race up to this point. He's now still just trying to hold on to that second spot.
And a nice little breakaway for these top 4 cars is about a second and a half back to 5th place Nicholas Cohen, and about 3.5 seconds back to 6th place Trey Edson. So quite a gap has developed as seemingly these top 4 guys have got a handle on things and are sort of mirroring each other, and then everyone else is sort of fighting amongst themselves in a different pack, and Nicholas Cohen's just sort of caught in the middle somewhere, almost no man's land. But yeah, I'm still watching this 88 Brandon Bowie close in and looking at his lap times. I ran about 1/10 of a second faster than Jason Jacoby that time by, and was even a little bit quicker than David Comstock as well. So, you know, Bowie's got to figure out right now how much he really needs to push the issue. He knows he's fast. He knows he's good enough to pass these guys right now, but does he really need to? Or can he continue just to run this thing out as we get closer to what should be our first round of green flag pit stops? And then maybe, you know, attack then after the pit stop is done and not try and really force the issue on more tires.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the big things, especially for the opening run, not only of this race, but of the championship, is how aggressive are you going to be for that second spot. They're going to take different lines through 1 and 2. This may open the door for Brandon Bowie as Jason Jacoby tries that bottom line. If his tires are struggling, that could not be a good choice, as Bowie's going to get a big run down the back straightaway, but will he get close enough? No, not going to be able to make the move in toward 3 and 4, but again, they're going to spread out, 1 on the bottom, 1 on the top through 3 and 4. Bowie will once again get the run, but he's a little bit closer this time than he was coming off of turn 2. So Bowie might be able to find an open door somewhere in towards turn 1, but Jacoby is going to try to slam all of them shut and does a very good job doing so. So Jacoby will hold on to that second spot, and he's going to try his luck in the middle groove now through 1 and 2.
Nice job defending there from Jason Jacoby. Took the line away on the entry to 1 there from Brandon Bowie, and that's really what you have to do. It's not dirty driving, that's just smart driving. That's being defensive and taking away where a guy really wants to run. Brandon Bowie seemingly has a lot of grip left in that 88 if he wants to run up top and sort of use that momentum. In these Xfinity cars, you don't have all the horsepower like you would in a Monster Energy Cup car, so really, if you can use that high side well, you get a great run off the corner, and you can, you know, try and pass a guy on entry down the straightaways. But Brandon Bowie not able to do it that time, but that 88 gets off of turn 2 a lot better than the 39 does, and he keeps closing in here. But like they say, catching him is one thing, passing him is another. We'll see how Brandon Bowie is able to navigate around the 39, or again, if he just chooses to ride there and make Jason Jacoby use his stuff up more than he really wants to.
We could be near the pit window as well, by the way, as we've had a car come onto pit road. It was the number 83, Jason Barham, who's running a little bit deep into the field, but maybe someone to keep an eye on, as that might be an indicator of these guys coming down pit road. As I'm going to take a quick look at the lap times over the course of this race thus far. Let's see how far the tires have fallen off. Quickest laps for these guys, pretty much mid to high 30s, 30.5s, maybe a couple 30.6s in there. It's of course going to depend on the traffic that you're going to be dealing with, because of course the first few laps will be the best. Basically mid-30s at the early stages of the run. Now these guys are doing 32.9s, nearly dropping off into 33. So these guys have lost nearly 2.5 seconds on the tires, David, every single lap. So this is pretty much, I think, the short pit window. If those who want to come down and get new tires, I think more than able to. Be sure you can keep these cars out there until a little bit closer to lap 50, and some may choose to do that. But it's going to be interesting to see. But I'd say the pit window is pretty much officially open right about now.
Wouldn't be surprising to me if Jason Jacoby is one of the first guys of our front runners here to make that dive onto pit road. Car really just struggling here as he watched up the track through 3 and 4. Allows Brandon Bowie to dive down to the bottom side and attack for that second position. Got to be careful with the 83 behind then on new tires. As Jason Barham, as you mentioned, now you'll see the difference of new tires, but he really has nowhere to go when they're side by side in front of him. But yeah, 2.5 seconds off of where they were with fresh tires. That means a lot. So these guys, if they want to try and pull the undercut, as you see Barham just easily swoop down to the bottom side here and pass these guys 3 wide down the front straightaway. You want to try that undercut. It could be worth 2.5 seconds or more per lap, and you can really put some distance on a guy that you struggle to pass on the racetrack. So we'll see who might be the first of our leaders to try that move as Bowie continues to work the bottom side. Jason Jacoby struggling right now to keep that car, and that is close off the 2. You see the big wiggle out of the 39. That is that's tough to hold on to.
Yeah, Bowie definitely saw that big wiggle. That was nearly disaster there for Jason Jacoby as well as Anthony DeBarro. And I mean, you talk about the fact that, oh yeah, it can get easy, you know, passing a car you're maybe struggling passing. Keep in mind that Jason Barham, he was running, you know, towards the tail end of the mid-pack, mid-20s, maybe even closer to 30 at that of our 39-car field. He just ran away from our race leaders like it was no big deal. So that is the difference in tires sort of visually on screen, as he's now basically halfway down the back straightaway away from this lead group, and David Comstock continues to lead the way. Anthony DeBarro, by the way, slips into that 3rd spot while I was busy rambling about tires. He is busy making moves.
And really the beneficiary of the little scramble between Jacoby and Bowie is DeBarro just never had to lift and used all that momentum to get around Brandon Bowie. So again, that's what you have to do with these guys in the Xfinity cars when you don't have all the horsepower. You got to use momentum to your advantage, and if 2 guys have to lift and you don't have to, you're going to make that move 9 out of 10 times. And Anthony DeBarro marching back up to the front, up to 3rd now. So a nice little rebound as we're here on lap 42. And getting ready for some green flag pit stops, Randy, but let's take a look at these guys top to bottom as they run right now before they cycle through.
Yep, we'll take a quick peek, but just before we do that, another race leader actually comes down pit road. Nicholas Cohen comes down, he qualified top 8. He's now coming down for tires and fuel. Let's take a quick peek up and down our grid as they currently run. Do a quick review of our top 10. David Comstock currently leads over Jason Jacoby, Anthony DeBarro in 3rd, Brandon Bowie 4th, and Trey Edson will round out your top 5. You get a pretty big gap back to Chad Coleman, Larry Pace, Bobby Terrell, Scott Simley, and Glenn Campbell, who make up your top 10. Go back to the top 20, Mike Kelly, Tyler Overstreet, Nelson Rivera, Anthony Calantoni, Brian Boris Cook, A.J. O'Rourke, Jimmy Coleman, Shane Ewing, Mitt Maltese says we may have a little bit of drama on pit entry around this point to 63 of Brian Boris Cook trying to come down on the pit road. I think a car got into the back of him, not expecting him to be there, and there was nearly a big pileup. Trying to see who that was that drove into the back of Boris. They see a lime green and black car with Nicholas Cohen, who I think was so busy looking at the traffic up top of him, he didn't see the fact that Boris was slowing down to come onto pit road, and that's going to be potentially a race ender for Boris because that was a hard hit.
Yeah, big shot in the rear for Brian Boris Cook, and probably better in the rear than out front. Won't affect the downforce on the nose nearly as much, and you can still get around the racetrack with a little bit of rear damage, but lucky that wasn't a bigger incident. You saw it there on the screen, just a huge clip, and sometimes when you got these guys pitting in front of you and you're trying to pay attention to the cars that are on the track when you're going so fast, it's almost too much to focus on, and you just clipped him there, and it happens a lot in racing, and fortunate it didn't spin him out or bring him up into the track to cause a bigger incident. But yeah, not what Brian Boris Cook was looking for out of that first pit stop. So he's going to be hoping for a yellow now so he can bring it back down and try and fix some of that damage.
Yep, and we got pit stops happening right now. We have a car around on pit road. That was a light blue car. Didn't quite see who it was. I was in the background of the camera angle I was looking at, maybe the 28, is I believe who that actually was. He spun coming down on towards pit road. I believe it was Anthony Calantoni. May have been that 19 car though. They were actually, that's who it was. It was the 19 car, similar shades of blue. They saw them running down on towards pit entry. Tyler Overstreet is getting a little bit sideways. That's one of the things that can be so difficult here, David, about getting on the pit road on these ovals. You drop off that banking, you know, the tires are worn out a little bit weird. You start really hammering the brakes, getting that car to slow down. It is not difficult to lock one of those tires up and pretty much throw yourself into a half spin, as the 20 of Chad Coleman, who's yet to come down pit road, currently leads the way out in front here by a casual 9 seconds over Mitt Matisse, who runs in second. So pretty much everyone who's out in front right now still is yet to come down pit road.
I think Chad was banking on maybe a yellow coming out there with all the chaos that was happening. Cars spinning, cars running into each other, getting onto pit road. But this is a relatively difficult pit road to get onto. The angle you have to turn the car coming off of turn 4 is a little bit sharper than you might see at other racetracks, and you're trying to hold the car at 150 miles an hour plus, and then all of a sudden jam it down to 45 miles an hour to make pit road speed. Coming off the banking onto the flat with hot slick tires and a lot of momentum, and that's just a very difficult thing to do no matter what car you're driving. So Chad's hanging out there, and gosh, you got to be careful. He slides up the racetrack. He's holding these guys up a little bit as the 27 of DeBarro has to work his way around him, tiptoe around him as well. So anxious moments there. Chad Coleman obviously going for the long haul here on this run, maybe praying for a yellow, so he has to pit under that yellow and keep these guys trapped a lap down. But it looks like he's on the brakes, he's downshifting, bringing that car to pit road. So Chad Coleman, your current leader, on pit road right now.
So he's going to end up coming down on towards pit road. Milt Matisse will be the next driver who currently leads the way. Also yet to come down pit road. Then it's Shane Ewing, I take that back. Shane Ewing, Bobby Wetzel, Patrick Colby, Michael Priester, Corey Chester are the drivers who still owe us pit stops. Then you get to our sort of expected race leaders. Jason Jacoby, actually a very, very good pit sequence here. He actually stole the spots away from the likes of David Comstock, and Anthony DeBarro. Brandon Bowie, not as great of a pit sequence. Seemed to have lost a lot of time on pit road there, as he falls behind Anthony DeBarro.
Yeah, that's really where you're going to see a lot of separation. These guys, how clean they can get onto pit road and get to their service and get off of pit road with maximum speed as well to optimize that in and out lap. Jason Jacoby seemingly did the best job of the group. David Comstock about a half a second behind him now, as they'll continue to cycle through, as the last of the drivers who have yet to pit will start to make their way through over the next couple laps, I would imagine, here on lap 51. That is a awfully long way to push it here. We've been green since the drop of the green flag. No caution flags just yet, and I don't want to jinx it. I'll knock on my wooden desk here to prevent that curse from coming true, because I love to see green flag racing. It really brings a lot of strategy, and if you're looking at tire strategy, 136 lap race, these guys were pitting anywhere between lap 45 to 50. That tells me that, you know, we're going to see one more pit stop somewhere around lap 90 to 100, and that's probably going to be it. So a two-stop strategy for these guys, and they'll have a short run in the third run to maximize tire wear. But Jason Jacoby doing a great job out front, but David Comstock is tracking him down ever so slightly, lap over lap, about a tenth of a second faster or so.
Yeah, it's definitely the situation right now. See Comstock dealing with that traffic just a little bit. Comstock did pit one lap later, and that could definitely come into effect. You know, it usually isn't a huge difference. Granted, you know, we saw Jacoby was at one point about 2 seconds or so back off of Comstock. He came down pit road first, was able to pick up the race lead because of it. Now Comstock, just that one lap difference could be the difference maker, especially because we saw Comstock be a little bit better on these tires as they got later into the run. So that could be an advantage for David that ends up really building itself if he can just sort of keep the same strategy going here and really just keep applying pressure here to this number 39 car.
As a race car driver, you have to be constantly thinking about what you've been doing, and you come down, you make your pit stop, and you sort of know where things stood before the pit stop and what you did well and what you didn't do so well that you need to then change in the second run. So Jason Jacoby had a lot of information to download very quickly during his time on pit road of how he got up to the front and then ultimately lost that lead to David Comstock. And you know, you got to think about, what am I going to do differently on the second run to prevent that from happening again? We don't want history to repeat itself if we're out front. We don't want to lose that lead. So we'll see what Jason Jacoby's got between his ears to apply out on the track to keep himself out front for the duration of this run. But I happen to think that David Comstock right now, even with just one lap fresher tires, is in the best position, as these two guys have really driven away by over 3 seconds from that of Anthony DeBarro and Brandon Bowie. So really it's a two-horse race at this moment, but Jason Jacoby out front looking good. We'll see what he can apply and what he's learned from that first run to put it to work here in the second run.
As Comstock still applying the pressure, the gap as they get to each other here and come across the stripe, pretty much 0.2 of a second right now. So Comstock is definitely reeling that in. Jacoby seems tight through 1 and 2, and Comstock's going to have a run. I think going down the back straightaway won't be close enough, but I think should reel in about 3/4 of a car length by the time they get to turn 3. Again, you see Jacoby drives that car way harder into the entry But Comstock, he just lets it roll just a little bit earlier on, just slides off the throttle, and is able to get a much better run. That could be why we're seeing this number 39 car really struggle with the tires, David, as the 42 is going to take a peek down the inside here in 1 and 2. Jacoby up against the outside wall trying to defend, as Comstock's going to not quite get the run that he needs, so they're going to stay pretty much single file. But just as hard as that 39 car is driving in, maybe even just on turn 3, that could really be the difference maker into how these tires are really forming up over the run, as we're now going to get Milt Matisse, who is on a slightly later stop strategy, of course. He's going to make a move, and the 42 is going to try to use him as a pick.
Wise move there from David Comstock. Use that car on the bottom as a pick and just follow those fresh tires through. Really opened the door for him to attack on that bottom, but Jason Jacoby, unlike what we saw at the end of that first run, can keep the car under control on the outside lane, and David Comstock really can't make anything happen on the bottom side as much as he wants to, as he'll hook that left front tire right around the white line to keep pace with Jacoby, but the 39 just gets a good run off the corner. Comstock seemingly can't do anything with it, and you got to be careful if you're David Comstock. You may have one lap fresher tires, but you don't want to abuse them trying to take this lead away if you don't necessarily have to. Let the run come to you and make that pass when it presents itself, but knowing David Comstock, he's not going to lay back as he gets another great run off of 2, accelerates hard, and will pull even as they go into 3.
That was the exact moment the 42 is waiting for. He's going to have the low line through 3 and 4. You can really use the bottom on this end of the racetrack, and he's going to do it to absolute perfection. Comes off turn 4. He will have the lead, but Jacoby has the momentum. I believe Comstock will beat him to the line, and indeed he does. That's going to be not technically race lead, by the way. They're still chasing down that 32. Shane Hewing, who's still out in front. So it's technically the battle for second as they roll through 1 and 2 once again. But Jacoby on the outside, now he has the advantage. He's just going to get clear down the back straightaway.
Great side-by-side battle here for what's currently second, what will ultimately be the lead once Shane Ewing comes down pit road, which, again, we're on lap 60 and he still hasn't pitted, which is impressive in its own right, but still side-by-side across the start-finish line. Jacoby up top, Comstock on the bottom. Great scrap here. This is why Las Vegas is one of the most fun racetracks you can come to when you get these cars set up right and you get the right conditions. This is the kind of racing you can get, as two drivers brawling top and bottom side, but you see time after time that top lane gets the run off the corner, and that's really the difference between these two cars right now. Comstock can get through the center of the corner just fine, but when it comes to getting off the corner, he just loses that momentum, having to keep it on the low side. And Jason Jacoby now will clear himself off of 4 once again as they are on lap number 61. Jason Jacoby holding back David Comstock right now, but all that's going to do over time, I think, is going to let Anthony DeBarlo and Brandon Bowie start to close in. That gap shrinking now to about 3 seconds behind these guys, as Shane Ewing did pit, as you see there in his pit stall. So now they have taken over the lead. They work by the 83, put him a lap down. Jason Jacoby stretching it out just a little bit.
Jacoby going to start trying to open that gap up. I think if you're Jacoby and Comstock, you don't want to worry about the likes of DeBarlo and Bowie too much just yet. But at the same time, it is something you need to keep inside the back of your head. And you see the 42 really work the bottom here on Jason Jacoby. Jacoby right up against that outside wall. Two corners, number 1 and 2, and still Comstock not quite able to get there just yet. And this is one of those situations, actually, David, where Comstock has to be a little bit careful, because we know he has the tire advantage. If he's getting too aggressive trying to make this move, he could end up burning those tires up and throw his tire advantage away. He seems to have the speed at the moment. Is that because David's just raw quicker, or because the tires are just that little bit better on that 42 car? You never want to necessarily end up in a situation where so focused fighting for this lead at this phase of the race that you maybe give up an advantage that you have, and potentially throw a little bit of a, with the slightly better tires of Comstock. Not only is he faster now, but he could potentially rationalize pitting a little bit later going into this final pit stop, assuming this stays green. You see lap traffic on new tires. They're going to go 4 wide as they come across start finish. The 2 on the left running for the race lead. The 2 on the right are lapped down. This is going to get tight going into turn 1. And luckily that 9 car, who was in the middle, a lane up, ends up lifting out of it. That was Patrick Colby and Bobby Wetzel putting on a good show for us.
I'm not sure what I'm seeing right now. that I had my breath held for that whole lap as I saw these lap down cars on fresh tires start to catch these two, and they're allowed to race in their own right. Absolutely they are, and they're given a lot of room, but this is tense moments if you're Jason Jacoby and David Comstock, because you know these guys have better tires and they're scrapping amongst themselves with fresh tires, and just, oh my goodness, this is a little bit of a mess right now, but somehow David Comstock comes out of it with the lead. So hopefully they get this thing settled pretty quickly. But to answer your question, yeah, I think, you know, to me, it's very difficult. I always struggle to run out front and not burn up my tires because I didn't have a sort of that marker in front of me to base my lap off of. So sometimes some drivers are better at following a guy around the track and they'll run better that way. Some guys are more comfortable being out front and keeping their equipment in good shape. So Jason Jacoby now gets stuck behind these two lap cars and really ruins his whole corner there as he loses a ton of time to David Comstock. And I think maybe Jason Jacoby, not as comfortable out front, able to take care of the tires nearly as much as David Comstock, is more comfortable following him around and protecting his tires, as now he's got two lap cars in between them. And they'll get this thing sorted out sooner rather than later, I hope. But if you're the driver of that 42 right now, you're just praying that these guys don't make a mistake and mess this thing up, because you really got a good thing going right now.
It is also one of those things where you want to let them by at some point relatively soon, I think, if you're David Comstock, because these two, they're being really aggressive with one another, fighting, and the last thing you want is to get up and get entangled with some lap traffic that's battling, especially them being on slightly newer tires. They're going to be going through some weird phases. Those tires start to wear, and oftentimes the drivers that are last down will start to struggle. As you see Patrick Colby get all sorts of sideways coming off turn 4 right there. So in some ways, if you're David Comstock, might be your best bet just to let this little duo go. You see Jason Jacoby, he's actually going to show the nose as well. Basically put only one car between himself and now that race leader. You see Jacoby just take the nose off of Bobby Wetzel back there in the background, and now Colby's going to take that inside line in towards 3 and 4, and the 42 sort of going to let him have it, which is a very, very good decision, I think. Just at least for nothing else, just for keeping yourself nice and calm and cool and not being so stressed out dealing with all these lap cars pretty much on equivalent pace with our two race leaders.
If this sort of stuff doesn't get you excited, I'm not really sure what will at this point, because you got so many storylines going. You got the leaders racing amongst themselves. You got lap down cars with fresh tires trying to race between themselves as well, and they're faster than the leaders trying to get through them cleanly. And all it's really netted out to is David Comstock out front by a few car lengths over Jason Jacoby. And looking out at the track conditions right now, I'm seeing a lot of marbles start to develop up along the wall. But looking at where the 39 is running, Jason Jacoby up outside of that groove, really on the high side out there where the marbles are. He's got to be real careful. He's walking a fine line. That's the highest I've seen anybody run up to this point, and you're really flirting with danger when you run that high. But you know, he's trying to get those good runs off the corner and track David Comstock down. He knows what he's doing. He's a professional. He's done this a lot, but that's definitely one of the highest lanes I've seen any of our leaders do. And conversely, David Comstock eating up the bottom lane like we've seen him do much of this race. So two different lanes getting it done here at Las Vegas. That's a fantastic thing to see.
That, of course, during at the top of the show that we'd likely see some side-by-side racing here at Las Vegas. See Jason Jacoby is going to get held up by that lap car of the 6th. That's actually Jonathan Lockhart. Ends up running the same line as Jacoby, and Jacoby finds the wall. Running off turn 2, you were just saying it's a fine line that you have to tread. Running up there, and Jacoby overstepped his bounds and dragged that right side right along the safer barrier, coming onto the Nellis straightaway, and that car is busted. He is all sorts of sideways coming off turn 4. So for Jason Jacoby, who's having such a good run tonight, that might be a bit of a killer for this one. And now, catching David Comstock likely out of the question. Will he be able to hold off the likes of DeBarro and Bowie? I'm going to say probably not, because I think there's too much racing left to go if the race stays green. I think even if we get a yellow, that car's too far gone that with them being that close, there will not be much that Jacoby could do. So Jason, just going to have to hold on and maybe pray for some repairs if we get a caution and be able to run through the field.
No pun intended when I say this, but he really has to go into damage control mode now. Not just the right side of the car that's all scraped up from that run-in with the wall there, but really he's still in second place, and third and fourth are way off. They're 4 seconds back from David Comstock. 3 seconds back from Jason Jacoby right now. So he still has a large buffer between him and his next closest competitor. And he just needs to take care of his equipment at this point. He overstepped the boundary. I was really worried about him running up that high with the way the track was starting to get a lot of marbles up there, and he just found the wall. And it's so easy to do that. You think you got it, and then you get to the exit of the corner, you don't got it, and you run out of room, and you can't check up, you can't get out of the gas, you can't turn the steering wheel enough to keep from going into the wall. So Jason Jacoby brought that on himself there, unfortunately, and he's got to be thinking about that. That's got to be in the back of his mind. But you see a great scrap on screen here as well. Further back for DeBarro and Edison as well, and even include the 88 of Brandon Bowie moving into the picture side by side for third, fourth, and fifth. These three cars have been absolutely going at it since the pit stops even went by, and not really sorting themselves out, but they're not really catching the leader either.
Yeah, they're currently 4 seconds back. They will be reeling in Jason Jacoby, though, and that gap has come down to about 2.8 seconds between Jacoby and Trey Edson. Edson, pretty much your biggest mover here tonight, has moved his way up deep into this field, up 13 spots from 16th up to 3rd. Another driver who's moved up more spots, Mike Kelly, 22nd up to 8th, so it's been a very good race for him as well. That's going to be a neck gain of 14 spots, and actually another driver that's moved up even further. Nick Silver, 33rd up to 16 as we're now over halfway in this motor race. So a lot of movers and shakers already starting to form themselves up. Timothy Johnson up 12 as well, 30th up into 18th position. Like you said earlier, we're going to have to wait a little bit before we start seeing those moving the way up the field. We've got a handful that have moved themselves up about a couple dozen spots or so, or nearly a couple dozen spots or so. As Anthony DeBarro continues fighting now with Brandon Bowie, as Trey Edson has that move done, has opened up 3 car lanes as they come to start finish.
I think some of these guys that started in the back, some of these bigger names that we expected to see a better performance from, they just haven't had the benefit of a caution flag even to help them catch up. They might be running really well, but as you said, Mike Kelly up 14 spots to 8th after starting 22nd, but he's 12 seconds back from the leader right now. So there's really not a whole lot he can do aside from just keep running a great pace, but eventually there's only so far you can go without the benefit of the yellow flag to bring everyone back together. But still a great run for him and others who have gained a lot of spots. That's nothing to hang your head on by any stretch, but David Comstock opens up that lead to 2 seconds now over Jason Jacoby, and this fight for second is about to get interesting as Jacoby falls into the clutches of Trey Edson, Anthony DeBarro, and Brandon Bowie. About to have a 4-way fight for second. I think in the end, Jason Jacoby's probably going to have to concede some of those positions as he knows he's damaged the race car. But a top 5, I think, is still well within the cards for him, and he can fix up that car a little bit the next time he comes down pit road, which we're probably somewhere around 15 to 20 laps away from.
It's going to be interesting to see. I don't think the fight itself will be that interesting when Jacoby actually gets to them, because he's knocked off about 3 to 4 tenths of a second per lap for these guys. And that's going to be more than enough that I think they'll be able to make short work of that damage number 39. But it's going to be interesting to see where he actually ends up kind of fanning out in terms of finding people on pace equivalent with him. Larry Pace, who's currently running 6th, is currently lapping at about the same pace. Scott Simley is quicker, though, so he may fall very, very deep down the field. Chad Coleman in P number 8 has some things happening around him, fighting with Mike Kelly right now. This is for 8th and 9th on the racetrack, as we're going to be getting closer and closer to that 50 lap to go mark. We're going to be 56 laps to go as they cross the stripe.
Chad Coleman, the man out of Georgia there, longtime sim racer and definitely familiar face here on RaceSpot and Sim500 as well, doing a nice job. Started 6th, currently running 8th, and he was one of those cars that stayed out for a really long time during our first run, and he's sort of settled himself in, some 12.5 seconds off the pace of David Comstock right now, but Mike Kelly closing in there in the number 2, so a nice little fight between those guys. Chad Coleman, I'll be interested to see how long he stays out this time, if he stays out as equally long or sort of shortcuts it after learning what the benefit of short pitting might have done for somebody else. But a nice run nonetheless for Chad Coleman in that number 20 car, looking to come out and make a name for himself. I know he had a great run in the regular season as Sim500 just wrapped up another league and did very, very well for himself there. So definitely a guy to keep an eye on, but everyone's looking at David Comstock right now, wondering what he's got cooking under the hood of that 42. Continuing to put down great lap times and really taking it to the field. And after Jacoby put it into the fence, I think he's probably feeling pretty good about his chances. If he doesn't screw things up on pit road, he could walk out of here with a checkered flag.
I think you're right about that one, as Chad Coleman continues holding off that 2 of Mike Kelly, as Jason Jacoby just continues to get bigger and bigger in the windshield of that 10 car of a Trey Edson. Anthony Navarro still running in fourth, Brandon Bowie in fifth. Now David Comstock. It's really a dream situation for him, because with Jason Jacoby kind of knocking his basically kind of ending his race into a certain respect, really being able to fight for that race lead and fight for the win, Comstock can now just basically settle out in front and go 100% focused on taking care of the tires. He doesn't have to worry about the cars around him. He doesn't even really have to worry too much about pit strategy, David, because he can basically come down pit road whenever he pleases. If he comes down pit road a lap or 2 later than the likes of Edson and Navarro and Jacoby, he's going to have enough time kind of built up in terms of this gap that, yeah, they might pass him, and, you know, if he waits 2 or 3 laps to come down pit road, but then he just has 2 or 3 lap fresher tires, and he's only a couple seconds behind them. So for David Comstock, this is a beautiful situation for a race that has had, you know, a super long green flag run to it since we went green, and still has a super long green flag field.
Yeah, his own destiny is in his hands at this point, and I think the only enemy that he still faces between now and the checkered flag is going to be pit road. As we look at this fight for 17th between Jimmy Coleman, Brian Boris Cook, and Timothy Johnston doing a nice job in that 55 as well, up 11 spots from his 30th starting spot up into 19th. So nice little 3-way battle here between these guys. And we talked about Brian Boris Cook earlier, who got rear-ended on his way onto pit road. That car definitely not the same as it was before the contact, as he was a little bit further up in the running order than that prior to the pit stop. So a little bit of a struggle there for the 63, as Jimmy Coleman doing a nice job in keeping these guys too wide behind him, trying to get away in that number 3, as Timothy Johnston now works the top side and will work his way up into 18th to put Brian Boris Cook back to 19th.
Yep, so nice little 3-car scrap here as Jimmy Coleman rocking that Toyota Racing Development paint scheme. 2 cars behind him, all in white. I think most notably Brian Boris Cook at one point running some Bitcoin sponsorship last year, from what I recall, from the Sim500 series. And now that car is pretty much just pale, I think he suffered from holding what he should have sold, as we actually get Jason Jacoby on towards pit road in that 39. So this is actually a really early call coming down pit road. Actually not so early, about 3 or 4 laps earlier than we might expect. 45 laps is what drivers did in that opening run, and now we're closing in on lap 90, just sort of that second window of coming down pit road. So Jason Jacoby, he ends up pulling the trigger early, trying to maybe get any repairs, but he wasn't down there really long enough, I think, to get any repairs on that car, at least none super serious. If he's going to come out onto the racetrack just ahead of the number 20 of Chad Coleman, who is running in 6th. Actually, David Comstock comes down pit road as well, so Comstock's going to make an early call. Trey Edson is going to stay out. We know he likes to stay out a little bit late, I believe. Anthony Navarro, Brandon Bowie, the bulk of the rest of your field is going to stay out here, so interesting that those two come down pit road as early as they do. Most notably David Comstock, I would have thought that he would push this run a little bit longer and get closer to maybe lap number 93, 94 before coming down pit road and really take advantage of that gap that he had to have as new as tires as possible for that final run.
Hey, I'll agree with that sentiment. I'm a little bit surprised he came down on the short side of lap 90 as well, but a nice clean pit stop nonetheless for David Comstock, and he'll rejoin the fray, and he'll have to run it out from here. So, you know, a 46 lap run to the finish for him. He felt that was the appropriate thing to do, and I doubt it had anything to do with Jason Jacoby coming down pit road, since he's, you know, probably a non-factor at this point with the damage done to that car. So, yeah, I'm a little surprised that they came down this early. As you see Jason Jacoby appear out of screen there, not too far off the back bumper of David Comstock, and that's just the benefit of using those fresh tires for a couple laps. But now the advantage swings back to David Comstock, as he has the fresh tires, and he'll likely start to pull away from the 39. So you see what an undercut is worth, but in the long run, if these guys don't get a yellow, I just don't see how this doesn't go Comstock's way.
I think you're right. It's going to be interesting, though. I will say I think that you could maybe see some strategy come into play for maybe like the DeBarro or Chad Coleman, and maybe kind of run this end of this stint just a little bit longer to try to get yourself some new tires, be out there 10, 15, maybe even 20 laps extra, and try to reel that gap back down and in. And of course, if you end up catching a caution, that can really help you out as well. field currently works its way through, and Anthony DeBarro inherits the race lead and has a nice fun little 3-wide moment as David Comstock will quickly unlap himself. However, that is sort of the disadvantage of staying out on the racetrack if you're Anthony DeBarro. As you look at the way that number 42 car is absolutely flying through traffic out in front of him, along with this number 39 machine of Jason Jacoby, who's quickly following suit. So, field now going to be pretty much all over the place in terms of running order. Going to be, as we're in the middle of the pit stop cycle once again, Anthony DeBarro, Chad Coleman, Scott Simley, Glenn Campbell, and Ejo O'Rourke are currently our top 5.
And you see that 27 by comparison of Anthony DeBarro just sort of loafing around the racetrack as David Comstock went flying by like Superman on those fresh tires. And you know, with your Anthony DeBarro, the clock's got to be going in your brain right now. You just saw the 42 pass you by to unlap himself, so you know as of right now you are just losing time to him the longer you stay out, whether he's hoping for a yellow flag or something else like that. But that's really the gamble. How long are you comfortable staying out on those old tires? Know you're losing a couple of seconds per lap to David Comstock, the guy you're trying to track down. So really that's the game within the game right now, as we see another car on pit road, and this pit cycle will continue. That's the 63 of Brian Boris Cook. An uneventful trip down pit road this time, unlike his first time.
I think he's going to be very happy for that one, to not have the nose of another race car approaching near the fuel tank of his race car, as we're actually going to get Scott Simley on the pit road from 3rd place, so he's going to give up his top 5 position. Nicholas Cohen, he's going to stay out. It actually had a bit of damage on that car. We saw him earlier doing some interesting strategy calls. Unfortunately, the race hasn't gone his way. Milton Matisse, who's the driver we've seen a couple times pop in and out, going to come down pit road in that Clover car. Very bright green machine is what that car is, and Anthony DeBarro continuing to hold out front with that, what is a bunch of lap traffic, some of which is slightly slower than him, but the bulk of which is faster than him. And this is always so difficult to deal with when you're out there as the race leader. You have, instead of lapping all the slower cars are now just unlapping themselves, and you're just constantly looking in your rearview mirror. Can really be a bit jarring and difficult to deal with, and I've seen drivers struggle with that in the past, but DeBarro seemingly doing a good job.
That's not a comfortable position to be in as a race car driver when everyone around you is faster and very impatient trying to get around you because they got fresh tires, and it's so easy to go fast on those fresh tires. You really just want to go. When a guy's slow in front of you, the closing rate can really become an issue. So if you're Anthony DeBarro, you got to be very careful. You got to be relying on your spotter. You got to be keeping an eye on your mirrors and just making sure you're not putting yourself in position where you're going to get run over or cause a huge wreck behind you. But he continues to run out there on the racetrack, now coming to the end of 97, starting lap number 98. So again, how long will he push this run? Chad Coleman still out on the track as well in 2nd. No surprise there. He went very long on the first stint, but Anthony DeBarro seemingly trying to pull a rabbit out of the hat. Maybe he thinks he won the pole and that he can stay out the longest and use the freshest tires the best to try and reel in David Comstock. But you just got to make sure you leave yourself enough laps to even have an opportunity to do that. We haven't seen many drivers tonight, Randy, run with David Comstock even on identical tires, let alone better tires. So it's got a long road to hoe in front of him, but maybe he can pull this thing off.
Going to be interesting to see. I think somewhere in the reign of about 10 laps after David Comstock came down pit road is likely when we're going to see this car come down. As Comstock actually hit pit road at lap number 88. That window just passed for Anthony DeBarro, lap number 98. So we're coming to 11 laps later in the sequence, coming up here in just a moment. The reason I say that, David, is because we need to come down soon enough that David Comstock just doesn't, open up an infinite amount of time in terms of the advantage on his new tires. And in fact, Anthony DeBarro comes down on pit road. But you need to have enough time after this pit stop to be able to reel in David Comstock for this strategy to end up panning out. I believe we also have Chad Coleman peeling onto pit road. Indeed, we do. Nicholas Cohen will be the only driver who has yet to come down pit road, and he will have the race lead as they work towards the start-finish line. That's not going to be for long, as David Comstock is not very far back and is running 3 to 4 seconds per lap quicker than that number 21. So for Anthony DeBarro, now it's pretty much go time. He has to hope, I think, that in order for this to work out, this race pretty much has to stay green. Otherwise, it could be, I think, potentially game over for this 27 car. He's going to be coming out, probably going down a lap.
That's really the only way this strategy is going to work, as David Comstock comes off of turn 4 right now. and is at the start-finish line at this point. So DeBarro still coming off of the pit access road off of 2. This thing's going to be interesting how it all shakes out, but David Comstock is definitely in the best position of everybody right now. He's got the fastest car. I mean, that's the only way I can put it. He's got the fastest car, and he's the most comfortable on the longest run. So, you know, for Anthony DeBarro, I think it was a good chance to try something, but in the end, I don't think he's going to be able to make up this big of a gap as he, you know, is almost a full lap down at this point for staying out that long as he'll come by the start-finish line. You know, DeBarro's in the middle of 1 and 2. Comstock's just going into 1, so that's a long way back to make up, even over the course of 30 laps with fresh tires. I just don't see that happening.
Yep, it's going to be something we have to take an eye on. And you know what? He just came down pit road, got some new tires. We've yet to step away all broadcast long. Let's ride on board for a little bit of RaceSpotTV fan immersion with Anthony DeBarro and see how that car is working on the new tires. Now going to be the quickest car on the racetrack for sure. Enjoy a few laps of RaceSpotTV fan immersion. As the 27 car works its way across the start-finish line, we are going to come back inside of 30 laps to go. Anthony DeBarro's done a good job, and we've got an idea of what the pace difference is, David. He's pretty much just shy of a second quicker every single lap around the racetrack. And David Comstock, lap traffic will sometimes affect that. Sometimes it'll help Anthony. Sometimes it'll help David. It is sort of ebbing and flowing back and forth. At that speed, he should be able to get to David Comstock. However, it's important to keep in mind that that advantage will not stay static through to the end of the race. He won't simply just be 1 second quicker every single lap until they eventually come down, until they eventually get to the start-finish line and take the checkered on lap number 136. So for Anthony DeBarro, even though he, I've seen this happen before. Drivers will say, oh, I'm X% quicker, I'll be able to catch them in X amount of laps. He needs to know that there's going to be a bit of fall off here, probably in about 10 to 12 laps time, where he's not going to be reeling in that 42 as quickly as he is right now, and maybe even before then.
It's going to be interesting to see how this shakes out. Yes, being a half a second to a second faster per lap helps when there's still 26 laps to go and you're only some 17 seconds back. But to your point, it's not going to be the same interval that he chops off every lap, and especially navigating lap traffic. That's really going to be the key. David Comstock's not really having to deal with a lot of lap traffic right now, and DeBarro does to get through these cars. So there comes a point in the run where the tires just sort of equalize and you don't have an advantage anymore. And I think DeBarro is going to work his way into the top 5. I just struggle to see him get to the top 3. And I certainly don't see him being able to get to the 42 as the laps continue to click away. I think it was a good attempt, a good strategy to try out, but just not enough time. And I think he waited a couple too many laps before he came in and did his final pit stop.
It's sort of kind of, I think when he goes for this strategy, which I think is a good thing, I think is potentially the only way he really has a chance of reeling in that 42 car. I think it's good doing something kind of standard. I don't think he ever had a chance. You know, if he waits, if he comes down too early, then he doesn't have the advantage for long enough because Comstock's tires are still too good. If he waits too late, of course, Comstock builds enough of a lead. The very fine line you have to try and tread. And of course, the other thing to keep in mind that he's starting to get into and amongst cars that aren't just lap traffic. He's going to be reeling in that 0-0 of Larry Pace here as we're watching the ninth place battle right now. Shane Ewing, Tommy Ryan, Bobby Terrell, 4-car scrap, 5-car scrap here, all on your screen as they come across start finish, as Bobby Terrell is going to end up picking up that 9th spot away for just a moment. As you see, that's going to be the 20 car throwing it down to the bottom. That's Chad Coleman on the 53. Trying to make that stick. That 53 car is Michael Waters. He's actually latched down. He's basically just swerving his way through this traffic, trying to get clear of it.
Yeah, probably trying to get away from it as fast as he can. He's got nothing to do with this right now. He's a lap behind these guys, and these guys are scrapping real hard for that 5th spot. Chad Coleman on the march. Again, the freshest tires of this group since he was one of the last cars to pit in that number 20 currently, and trying to track down Bobby Terrell as well for the 9th spot, I should say. So Chad Coleman trying to work his way back through, and you see him he's able to get back to the gas a lot sooner in the middle of 1 and 2 and gets that great run through the corner on exit as he'll use that bottom lane, sling it down to the bottom of the 5, and he'll be clear before they even get to the center of the corner. Move Chad Coleman up to 9th, and that fight has seemingly worked itself out now that knot of cars has unknotted itself and racing has resumed. But looking at Anthony DeBarro in the 27, trying to reel in the 0-0 of Larry Pace. You know, getting through lap cars is one thing, but I think, as you said earlier, Randy, trying to get through these guys that are on the same lap as you, they're not just going to move over. They don't care if you got new tires. You're fighting for a spot, so it's a lot harder to pass those guys, and you're going to lose time to David Comstock. The ultimate goal is to track down the 42, but when you're fighting with guys, it's just impossible.
Yeah, and especially talking about, I mean, this 0-0 of Larry Pace, I mean, is a bit quicker than all these drivers that DeBarro's been having to drive his way around with, so he's sort of the first level boss that Anthony DeBarro is going to have to deal with. And it's going to be, I won't say the most difficult thing in the world, because look how loose Larry Pace is. He's got a bit of damage on that car, and that car is just not right. So this is going to be sort of the ideal situation for DeBarro. I think if he gives it a lap, maybe 2, he should get this move clear, and it's not even going to be that long. It's going to be 2 corners, and the 27 breezes his way on through. I think Larry Pace made that a bit easy because Larry is just sort of out there just holding on, trying to just conserve and get his way to the end of this race as best as he can. So for Anthony DeBarro, that may have seemed easy, but you know, now 4 seconds up the road, only lapping 0.3 of a second slower than Anthony DeBarro is Brandon Bowie in that 88. So for DeBarro, nearly, you know, they're basically the entire back straightaway apart from one another, this 27 and this 88 car. It's going to take him, I think, 10 laps to get there, and we talked about the fact that the pace would eventually plateau for this machine, and I think it's happened for the 27. If you look at the lap time, 32.3 for DeBarro this trip around the racetrack. For David Comstock, a 32.8. So now only half a second quicker every single lap versus the 1 to 1.2 seconds we were seeing right after he came off of pit road.
I think he can get, you know, probably to Bowie. I don't know if he's going to advance much further than that. just because it is taking so much longer to catch the next guy in line. Like you said, 3 seconds or 4 seconds up is Brandon Bowie over DeBarro right now, and we're on lap 118, so we're inside of 20 laps to go. He's running out of time to make up any more spots, and it's going to be, you know, he could think in his mind it was worth the gamble. I had to do something, and really he did. I don't think anyone was going to beat David Comstock on flat-out speed after Jason Jacoby put his car into the fence off of 2. So, you know, DeBarro had to try and pull something out of the hat, maybe throw a Hail Mary and catch it in the end zone for the game winner, but I just don't see that materializing here tonight. I think he gave himself a great opportunity to do that. It's going to fall a little bit short, but, you know, that's the name of the game in racing. You got 13 races for a championship, and you know you don't have a good chance to win it on speed here. Maybe try something a little bit different to give yourself a good points night at least, and I think at least in the end Anthony DeBarro will have a good points night for himself.
I will say one driver we haven't really been paying too much attention about. We're going to take a look back at P14 and EJ O'Rourke, who's involved with this fight. Shane Ewing is a little bit clear out in front, but Glenn Campbell, he's going to throw the move down low to try to pick up this 14th spot through 1 and 2. Not going to happen. And the Gary Mercer trucking driver is going to hold on to that position for now. Is EJ doing a good job in that pretty much classically EJ's game, blue and white car. At the 44, actually all sorts of sideways off of turn 4, as is EJ, and he gets a little bit of a wiggle and has to hold on to it as well. Not a huge advantage. That number 10 car of Trey Edson, he's been lapping about 2/10 quicker than David Comstock every single lap as well, running in that second spot. I don't think he has quite enough time to get there, but he's done a good job really bringing that gap in lap on lap this entire run, as this battle continues to form itself up. And EJ doing a good job just managing the gap. But the 44 is going to try his luck down low.
Big move there. Good scrap down the front straightaways. These guys continue to fight over those positions. 13th, 14th, 15th. 3 cars under a blanket as Shane Ewing out front of this group. But here comes the 44 of Glenn Campbell trying to go 2 for 1. That's going to be really tough. That car wants to slide up, and EJ's right there. You got to be careful. Pay attention as they keep it all straight down the back straightaway. But, oh, a little bit of an issue there. It looks like, is he out of gas, or what is it for Ewing? In the 32 just slowed suddenly halfway down the back straightaway. He's going to pull it to pit road. So, boy, crisis averted there, but that got really close.
Yeah, I'm not sure what happened there for Ewing. Is he not come down pit road yet? I'm trying to look. He was on pit lane on lap 61. So, yeah, he was actually just at the tail end of a very, very long pit cycle. I'm not sure what. Oh, you know what? He's going for a sort of interesting two-stopper here with a bunch of long runs and a very short final run. Obviously not panning out for him given where he is, running 20th when he eventually ends up coming down pit road. But I think he knew he had to come down there, and, you know, I think they weren't expecting him to be on such a long run there when he eventually pulled the trigger. And I think for EJ, just wasn't expecting that car to slow up quite the way he did. So luckily, you know, disaster averted there. EJ might have a little bit of damage on the front of that car. Not sure how seriously he got into the back of him, but now he needs to set his sights back out in front and on trying to reel in that 44 of Glenn Campbell. But he's still not too far out ahead, but he pretty much got a free about 10 car lengths, did Glenn, after that little checkup as that car came down pit road.
The last thing you expect is the guy in front of you to just slow down like that down the straightaway. And yeah, very fortunate that he didn't end up getting turned around and causing a bigger wreck and sweeping some other guys up into that. So, you know, in real life racing, you get to put your hand out the window and tell the guy behind you you're slowing down or coming to pit road. And typically you won't really do that when they're too wide behind you, but he really had nowhere to go. And EJ did a great job jumping on the binders to avoid what could have been a nasty little dust up there, but put EJ, you know, a few car lengths back as he continues to wheel it off of turn 4 sideways, lap after lap, getting everything he can in that number 41 in the 14th position right now. But I'm looking at this interval up front, and Trey Edson is closing in on David Comstock. Not a lot, but he's shaving a couple tenths of a second here and there as we're on 10 laps to go.
And he's just so close. He's reeling about 2/10 every single lap. 10 laps to go now. And he's 2.5 seconds back. So if he could keep that pace up, he'd get to within a half second of David Comstock. That has to be a bit of a heartbreaker for Trey Edson. He just got a little bit checked up by some lap traffic that last couple laps that really hurt him in being able to deal with this and being able to bring that gap down and in. I think the bad news actually take this back. David Comstock has a lot of lap traffic he has to deal with. So Comstock isn't out of the woods just yet, especially because Trey, that last lap, he reeled him in another 1/10 of a second. And if Comstock has to deal with this lap traffic, he's like, one, if he catches it at the wrong time, if they start fighting, that's going to check him up. And if he has to use up the tires, he could maybe lose just enough speed that Trey Edson could get to him in probably that final lap. So as we're coming to 9 laps to go on the season opener, David Comstock, who's been the dominant car ever since we lost Jason Jacoby, is not out of the woods just yet.
That's why they race all 136 laps of these things, because you just never know what's going to happen. And David Comstock, if you're him right now, you're screaming into the radio at your spotter to tell these guys, get out of the way. I need my line. Tell them to just not fight me. Let me get in my corner entry. Let me get off the corner without having to slow down. But that's part of racing. They don't have to move over. They don't have to give you the lane. It's just, you know, sort of common courtesy to do that, but they're still able to run out there just the same. And so that's part of it. If you're the leader, you got to get through lap traffic as we see the 3 sort of move over and let Comstock go, which I'm sure he's very appreciative. Jimmy Coleman, nice job in the 3, but again, Edison closes down to 2.2 seconds now that lap, and seemingly very clear track in front of him until he gets to the 3. Comstock looks out the windshield and sees Chris Gibbo in the number 1 running up alongside the wall there as well. So he'll try and sneak past him as best he can, and then he's got a little bit of a break, but these laps will click down, but it might not be without a little bit of drama.
Problem is, though, that Trey Edson has really hit the plateau in the tires and is not really close enough. We talked about the fact that it was 2.5 seconds with 10 laps to go. We're now 6 laps to go. It is 2.1. So that pace has really dropped off to only about a 1/10 per lap for Trey Edson. Is a 1/10 and some change that last trip around the racetrack, but with the 5 to go marker as they come off of turn 4 and to the start-finish line, for David Comstock, he has to feel very comfortable in his situation. And if you're Trey Edson, you're probably starting to realize that you don't have enough and you're not quite close enough to get to that 42.
Nah, it's just going to come up a little bit short, it would appear. And remember, Trey Edson started 16th. He's up 14 positions from where he started. Had he started a little bit closer to the front, this race has not seen a caution flag either. So without the benefit of a yellow flag, he's moved up 14 positions. But who knows, if he started closer to the front, he may have been a big player in this thing before it was all said and done. But, you know, it's just something for him to build on as they go into the coming weeks, to know that he was able to pass all those cars and still come home seemingly in second for right now. But David Comstock, 3 laps to go, or 4 laps to go, I should say, is looking pretty good.
3 laps to go and completely clear track for the most part. Out in front of him, a couple lap cars, but I think he shouldn't quite get to them by the time they get to start finish. But there is some lap traffic he might have to think about. Trey Edson brings the gap down to within 2 seconds, and it's going to be just a couple of laps left as they make the run off of turn 4. So for David Comstock, he will begin at lap 134 of 136.
You saw this great battle on your screen here as Mike Kelly and Chad Coleman continue to go wheel to wheel for the 8th position, looking real good there as they've been fighting for at least a 15-20 laps prior to this. Keeping it clean, Coleman on the bottom, Mike Kelly up top. Another big mover there, Mike Kelly. Started 22nd, currently running 7th, so these 2 guys aren't done. They'll probably carry this thing out to the checkered flag as well.
They probably will. That 20 car working that bottom groove, trying to make that stick. Chad Coleman, Mike Kelly still working that upper line up top. He's going to have the advantage coming off the corner down Dallas straightaway, and he's just about going to get clear, but not quite. So the 20 of Chad Coleman will be able to keep himself pinned down to the inside here as they work their way through to begin lap number 135. So 2 laps to go for the season opener for these 2, duking it out for the 7th spot on the racetrack, and they are not going to give an inch to either one of themselves. Through 1 and 2, the 20 on the bottom will have the advantage on entry, gets a couple of bumps, but actually the 2 car of Mike Kelly, not as smooth and not as quick, through the center of the corner, will not be able to maintain speed. But for the 42 of David Comstock, he will see the white flag as he rolls through corners number 1 and 2 with a 1.7 second lead over the 10 car of Trey Edson, who has tried everything that he can to bring in that gap to that 42 car. As they work through 3 and 4, the Sim500 Winter Series, they have a Kickass sponsor, and let's have ourselves a Kickass race. 136 laps all under green, and David Comstock will take victory the season opener in Las Vegas.
A real ass kicking, I guess I can say that, I don't know, sorry if I can't, but to the field does David Comstock do it, and Trey Edison comes up just a little bit short, came across the line 1.7 seconds back in second place. Jason Jacoby comes home third after damaging that car, being a big player early on, but still salvages the third place finish, and he's got to feel good, but knowing that probably had a better shot at a win and took it away once he got into the wall. But what a run. David Comstock come in here, season opener, come out and dominate like that. He's got to feel real good about that performance.
That fight for 7th, by the way, between Chad Coleman and Mike Kelly, they were side by side for the bulk of that final lap. It ended up being Chad Coleman who ended up taking that spot away after getting a good run off of turn number 4. But I have to say, that 42 car of David Comstock has to be very happy with himself, as he's going to be burning the tires down on that start-finish line. That's going to be our cue as he does some celebrating. Let's go down all the positions here of your 39-car field here tonight in the full race results. David Comstock continues generating some smoke particles in the iRacing 3D graphics engine. He takes the big victory here over everyone. Trey Edson comes home in second with Jason Jacoby third, Brandon Bowie fourth, and Anthony DeBarro in that 5th spot. Larry Pace is 6th, Chad Coleman 7th, Mike Kelly in 8th, Scott Simley in 9th, and Bobby Terrell will round out the top 10. In the 11th spot will be Tommy Ryan, Nelson Rivera in 12th, Glenn Campbell in 13th, EJ O'Rourke 14th, with Timothy Johnson rounding out your top 15. Nicholas Cohen will be the last driver on the lead lap in 16th. Jimmy Coleman, Joey Gatna, Milt Matisse, and Brian Boris Cook will round out your top 20. Michael Waters, Shane Ewing, Bobby Wetzel, Tyler Overstat, Randy Yoakum, Anthony Calantoni, Sean Bounty, Patrick Colby, Matthew Wallensbach, and Jonathan Lockhart will round out your top 30. And then Jason Barham, Michael Priester, Doug Roth, Chris Gabo, Jason Lester, Corey Chester, Nick Silver, Tim Matthews, and Dwight Beverly round out the 39-car field. We'll be back in just a couple moments here on RaceSpot TV for some post-race coverage and interviews. Do not go away. Welcome back to RaceSpot TV as we had an exciting season opener for the Sim500 Winter Series brought to you by Kickass Beef Jerky here on RaceSpot TV. 136 laps, all 136 laps completely under green, and at the end of it, it was the driver of the number 42 of David Comstock who pretty much dominated this thing through the entire second half of the race. But before we get to that, David, let's talk about that first half of the race. Very, very, let's say, entertaining out in front. There were 4 cars pretty much all out there fighting for the race lead at one point. Yourself, Jason Jacoby, Brandon Bowie, and Anthony DeBarro were really the 4 cars that were scrapping for that race lead in the early going. How difficult was that kind of dealing with those guys and getting through the opening kind of first run and a half before you and Jason kind of separated yourself?
Yeah, it got kind of tough there as race would go on early off, just because it was so line sensitive. The track wasn't rubbered in, it wasn't heated up much, so passing was tough. You can really pinch a guy down if you're trying to hold your spot. And so, but for us, luckily, with the more laps we got on our car, the better it seemed like we got there, and it got to more of my driving style on being on the freer side. So it was definitely a good battle amongst us 4, and then the pit stops happened, and that's where things separated a lot. And Jacoby and I had good battles there throughout the middle part of the race there, and just overall, just hats off to everybody in the race tonight for going caution free. That's really spectacular.
Then, of course, as we started getting into about that midway point of the race, you ended up taking that race lead away from Jason. Jason ended up moving to that upper line in 1 and 2. We talked about how with all the marbles up there, he was probably going to be on thin ice. He ended up eventually making a mistake off turn 2, smacking that outside wall and losing enough speed that there's really nothing he could do, and basically just fell backward and ended up settling for P3. When did you realize that Jason likely gotten himself into trouble? And, did you pretty much know that you guys more or less had the race won at that point?
I saw that when we came off, when we first pitted, the tire fall off, I needed to pit within a couple laps in order to maintain at least the lead in front of him, just because when that first pit stop happened, trying to get back by him, the tires were almost equalized out, and so it made it tough. But I really didn't know that he had hit the wall. I just thought that he, with the fall off of me having a couple lap fresher tires, that it was just me able to pull away more as the run went, just with the tire advantage. Kind of was getting concerned with Trey there. He was kept running me down. He was like 6 seconds or so back at the beginning of that last run, and I really think because it went caution free, had he had track position as far as the start qualifying better, he would have been the one in victory lane. So we got very fortunate there.
And next week we're going to be going to the Atlanta Motor Speedway, very different track here than Las Vegas, a bit more steeply banked, and also an equally abrasive surface, even if not more so. Talk me through the difficulties, some of the difficulties of running the Xfinity car there.
Momentum based for sure, just like here. It's just going to be tire management a lot more there with how abrasive that surface is. So hopefully we'll be able to move around a bunch. I don't think we'll be able to move around in 3 and 4 like it typically is, but 1 and 2, I expect us to be able to, we can search around and put on a good show there.
Well, David, thanks for joining us. Congratulations on having a very strong run here tonight and coming away with the race victory, running all 136 laps under green. Before we let you go, who gets it done for that number 42 car?
Yeah, I'd like to give a shout out to all my teammates here at Aftermath Motorsports for all of us running here at Sim500 Leagues, the admins for putting the show on, Kickass Beef Jerky for sponsoring the series here, and sponsors in the car, racingbids.com. If you go to Facebook, search at racingbids.com, we hold live auctions every Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern, so you can put your bids in and try to win some like die casts or hero cards or even some pieces of race card that they've got there, the auction off. So go get your bids in on that and win some cool stuff. Moss Energy, Gary Mercer Trucking, JD JDR Graphics for painting my car, and you guys for broadcasting. Everybody, fans, friends, family watching, thank you guys.
Well, there he was, race winner here tonight from the season opener of the Sim500 Kick-Ass Beef Jerky Winter Series, David Comstock. Second place, driver who started very deep in the field and did a good job late in the goings to actually work some strategy and maybe start making David sweat just a little bit. That 10 car of Trey Edson, he comes home with the second spot. David Schildhaus, you're stood by with him.
All right, Trey, come home second place after starting 16th. Any race car driver is going to feel good about gaining 14 spots, but you were really making it interesting there towards the end. How much time did you really need to reel in that 42?
Well, David and I we're teammates. We were in a channel together. I told him I needed about 10 or 15 more, so I'll stick with that answer. Yeah, I just I couldn't hot lap the setup. If y'all, I'm sure y'all saw, but like right after we got tires, David would gap me, and then it showed in qualifying. I couldn't run hard and put down a hot lap. So, but yeah, it's awesome driving up through the field and having a good long run car. So I think anybody that's raced this league with me knew kind of that's what you're going to get out of me every week. So hope I get to talk to you guys weekly, though. That means we're having a good night.
Yeah, anytime you get to talk to the broadcast crew after the race, that's usually a good thing. And, you know, drive up through the field with a car that's a little bit down on horsepower and a track that requires a lot of straightaway speed to be successful. How were you able to get through the field, I guess, is the best question. What was it that was able to allow you to do that and make up all these positions?
I don't want to give away all my secrets. We run a lot of 1.5 miles, but the best way I can describe it is kind of do what Kevin Harvick does at Atlanta. Just kind of stay on the bottom, run your own pace. Don't worry about what's around you. And I just try to take care of the right front. That's what our iRacing has given us right now as far as the tire model. Taking care of the right front's huge at 1.5 miles, and it's really a really big deal in the Xfinity car. So everybody just kind of shoots out of a rocket, and I just hang out and keep doing my own thing.
Well, second place under your belt to start the season, nothing to feel bad about. Look forward 1 week from tonight. We'll be in Atlanta. What are your thoughts heading in there?
It's been a while since I've ran Atlanta because I didn't start running this league until mid-season last year. So, and I haven't really ran any iRacing open races stuff. So, I'm not sure what to expect. I'm sure I'll do the same thing. You'll see me right on the white line. So, yeah, I'm excited for it.
All right, Trey, microphone's all yours. Give a shout out to those who helped get you done here tonight in that number 10 car.
Yeah, just thank you guys for broadcasting. Welcome aboard. Hope you guys, not sure I was going with that. Hope you guys are looking forward to it as much as Joey was. Joey's super excited. You guys do a great job. Got to thank Kickass Beef Jerky, the sponsor of the series, but they're also on the hood and quarter panels. So it's always good to represent your sponsor when they are on the series. So that's a big deal. I didn't want to come out here and look silly tonight. So thank them, kickassbeefjerky.com. They got some good holiday specials going on right now. So head on over there and check that out.
There you have it. Second place finisher here tonight at Las Vegas, Trey Edson. Good job. Up 14 spots. We'll look forward to seeing you next week in Atlanta.
Appreciate it. You guys have a good one.
All right, there you have it. And I believe we've caught up our third place driver, Jason Jacoby. Randy, you got him.
Yep, I'm stood by with Jason Jacoby and his stream chat on YouTube. Jason, first start of the race, it looked to be a very good race for you. You were fighting for the race victory, of course, with David Comstock and Anthony DeBarro, and you're sort of in all the fights with the race leader in the early goings. You end up, unfortunately, finding the wall, coming off of turn 2, losing a little bit of speed in the car. Talk me through that issue you found just running that upper line. Seems like you just got tight.
Randy, you're exactly right, and thanks so much for shouting out to my stream and all my awesome viewers, and shout out to everyone watching on RaceSpotTV as well. But yeah, buddy, I tell you what, I think the trick, if no one is familiar with this part of Las Vegas, if you back out of the gas, especially when you are running that high and you hit the bumps, it's actually get it tighter. So looking back, I should have stayed in the gas a little more and kept it a little lower, but when you back out of it, it kind of actually gets even tighter and it gets you in the wall. And I've had so much experience doing that before that I knew better, but I still put it in the wall. And man, I had a great time racing everybody out there. Congrats to David. He was super good on those long runs, as he always is every time I run in Sim500 with them. So it was really cool to be racing those guys, and yeah, it was a lot of fun out there.
Talk me through your approach, because it's, of course, with a brand new championship, I've seen a lot of kind of series like this come up, be them running the A car, the B car, and the trucks, and the first race generally has a big field, and not uncommon that you see some drama in that opening race because there's so many drivers taking part. What's your strategy coming into this, and how does that strategy change knowing that you have 39 cars out there that managed to keep it green for 136 laps of racing?
My strategy is always since I'm a streamer as well, is to put on a good show with some exciting racing, close racing. Lately, though, I have made it a goal of mine to race smarter and not just take chances to make it really exciting, which when I make moves like that, sometimes it costs me spots or stuff like that. But it's a good lesson to learn. Going for maybe an extra 1,000th there off of 2 is when I put it in the wall and ended up losing speed in the car, like you mentioned earlier. But I think the goal from now on is definitely try to get wins. have some good close racing. But, you know, I think the approach going in, especially one of my, like, kind of sponsors, Seat Time Racing School, Buck Baker Seat Time Racing School, when I went out there, they said, if you're not as comfortable in a race car as you are your passenger car, that could be slowing you down because you want to be comfortable and anytime you drive. And so I kind of tried to take that mentality and just relax in the car. Like Ray Alfalla told me a long time ago, too, relax when you're driving and in sim racing, and just you might run faster that way if you're relaxed.
Definitely acknowledge that, not only in racing but for anything that you do on a competitive level. That is definitely good advice. But Jason, thanks for joining us. Congratulations for having a good, strong showing here. No, you wanted to at least be able to fight for the win, so unfortunately that wasn't able to pan out in the later stages of the race, but you did fulfill your strategy of putting on a good show when you were up there at the front of the field, so we have to thank you for that. But the floor is yours. Any sponsor plugs you'd like to throw out there, throw them out there.
Randy, you got it. Thanks so much. Once again, to everyone watching on RaceSpotTV, to all my awesome viewers, and to Sim500, Joey Gattina, all the admins here for putting on a great league, one of the most prestigious leagues out there. And one last thing, guys, if you don't have iRacing yet, or if you do have iRacing, one of my sponsors, Ford Entertainment Group, he makes absolutely the lowest price PCs you can get out there. So if you want to get an iRacing, please check out my channel and any of the stream descriptions. You can contact Jeffrey Ford, because he does it out of the kindness of his heart to get people in iRacing and sells them as low as you can possibly find anywhere on the internet, so you guys can get to racing. And thank you guys again.
Well, there he was. Mr. Jason Jacoby comes home with a strong third-place finish tonight as our final interviewee. David, that was an entertaining race to broadcast here tonight, to go 136 laps totally under green. Like I just said, it's really uncommon when you have a series start up. You generally have the peak interest from all the drivers. Everyone who signs up turn in to get the full 39-car field. Oftentimes there'll be some drama. Everyone here tonight did a good job keeping that drama pretty much to absolute zero. We had a couple little spins, but is merely, I think, kept to. I think I saw one car make a trip through the grass one time when we were doing our fan immersion, and other than that, the only other spin I can think of was when we had that half spin on pit road.
Anytime you can get 39 sim racers together, have them go 136 laps, make 2 green flag pit stops, and not have a yellow the whole time, you're doing something right. So a big shout out to all the staff that's involved here at Sim500 for putting together one amazing product, and that's why we're so excited to bring it here to you live on RaceSpotTV all season long, to see this type of racing action week in, week out. And it's only going to get better as the weeks go on. The points will fluctuate. We'll have new storylines, new rivalries develop as well that we'll talk about, and these guys head out to Hotlanta in 1 week. It's going to be a much different type of race than what we even saw here tonight, but early money showing David Comstock to be the hands-on favorite for this championship right now. Granted, we're only one race in. A lot of things can change, but everyone can walk away from this event feeling really good about it.
Absolutely right about that. Of course, it is another cookie cutter track, so this will be an indicator. But of course, the other big thing to think about is coming off of next week, we'll be having a build release, and that's always a big curveball to throw all these drivers, all these competitors, once we get into a championship. Luckily, it's taking place early in this championship rather than deep into it or right smack in the middle. But that is going to do it for us here on RaceSpotTV and our opening broadcast for the Sim500 Kick-Ass Beef Jerky Winter Series. If they're going to kick it off like this, hopefully they can keep up this sort of momentum all the way through, because that was a fantastic race to watch. Huge shout outs, of course, to all of the sponsors that make these RaceSpotTV broadcasts possible. Of course, Isman Ballo at TrackCams22.com, Andy Warner and Win Designs, who designed the beautiful overlays you see on screen, Simon Grossman from Appgeneering, they did all the programming at ATVO to be able to make those overlays work. And for our live timing, Mr. Nick Tisson at RaceSpot.tv live timing. And of course, Sim500 for partnering with us for this championship, and Kickass Beef Jerky for supporting the series. Huge thanks as well to David Schulthouse and Hugo Louis working with me tonight on the event. That is going to do it for us here on RaceSpotTV. So until next time, bye-bye.